Part one was explaining how it all worked, and now we are going to put it back together. So we are going to start with basically how do we attach the bottom part, which has got the gearbox and the water pump housing, to the top part. And there's quite a bit to line up here. So the drive shaft needs to go through that little impeller and then onto the gear. There we go. So it's attached onto the top of the gears, and it's also spinning the little impeller through there. Then this arm needs to go through there, and it is going to end up attaching there. Now you can see how deep it goes in by where it's chromed up to there. So, well, it's chromed all the way, but obviously it's weathered here. So it needs to be that deep again, and it needs to be lined up because it's going to attach there. So it pretty much goes in. Just the last little bit is going to need some encouragement. So let's get that square. You can see it's got about another 4 mils to go in there. So I'm just going to give it a couple of taps with the hammer, which you can't see, to get it down. Okay, we are good to go. Now at the top here, I'm going to take, there's a nut and a crush washer. You really don't want to lose any of these bits and pieces because they're all different sizes. So always good to have a couple of these little bowls lying around, courtesy of Wagamama Takeaway. Then on this side, this is the exhaust tube, and you know which way it goes because here where the hole is going to get screwed into there. So that's the top, that's the bottom. So the first thing we want to do is attach it this side. It's not very difficult to do. You will take your Whitworth, that's 5/16, and you would make it, I would say, firm would be a good way to think about it. But don't over tighten it because it's soft metal. That'll be perfect. So we need to get this on. Well, we do need to do many things now because think of what's got to happen. That has got to go into that little hole I showed you last time, whilst at the same time that has got to go into the drive shaft, and these two bolts have got to go through there. And you've got to get it all lined up. In particular, if you don't get this brass tube into that hole, then your whole cooling system is not going to work. So let's see. And I've got these holes in this table just to add to the complexity of it all. Let's try again. 30. Just do it slowly. Okay. Okay, this is good. So when I swivel this, I can see it's turning that. I double checked that that was going through there. So all I've got to do now is get it finally on that is there, and that little hole on here needs to line up at the back. So I'm just swiveling this exhaust tube a little bit further. Okay, come back a bit. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna put it on its head then. Luckily I've got this table. There we go. And if I give that a bit of a tap, my big hammer and some wood. Okay, that's it. So just to show you what I was doing, because it's hard with the camera. So you've got to make sure that as the brass pump has gone through that little hole and the crank where it's coming out has lined up with the drive shaft. Then I'm going to put my crush washer there, crush washer there, and these two nuts. One is going there, and one is going there. Okay, so we do them as far as we can, finger tight. I'm going to speed things up slightly with this little just be careful you don't do it too tight. Then this one is interesting because you're going to discover that it's really hard to get a spanner in there, and it hardly does like a fraction of a turn. So what we do is we put it in like that and turn. There it goes. And for the last tighten, basically you can put a screwdriver on the other side of the spanner and use that for leverage. So that is done. I need to line up this exhaust tube so I can put the little screw in. So I'm just going to tap this a bit with the hammer to get at the very last, almost just a couple of millimeters further. Yeah, that's it. And then you will find the very small screw, and it's going, I'm sure you can see it, it's going there, and that allows the exhaust tube basically then that it won't move around, although generally they don't move around, because if they moved around it wouldn't have hammered in, would I know I gave some people a little ratchet screwdriver. That would have been nice. Okay, so that honestly is the kind of the most complicated part of it. The last thing we need to do in this stage is to do up the pinch bolt. Because actually the only thing that's really holding it together is that this arm, or this downpipe, is bolted in here and bolted in there. Because, you know, this, I mean, it's screwed in here, but it's just resting there. And that brass water pipe is just resting in that hole. So really important that we don't forget to tighten up this pinch bolt. And on almost all the engines that will be Whitworth. This particular one I had to drill it out, so I would need a little metric spanner to tighten that pinch bolt. Okay, so that's good. What should we do next? I think we put the tiller arm back on, and then we can fit the carburetor and the throttle control, which attaches to the tiller arm. Eva Keika. That is going to go like that. Now, these are interesting because sometimes the bolt stays in and the nut comes off, and sometimes the whole thing comes off, but it's pretty much pretty straightforward. And let's see what we got going on here. It's got a little spring, so again, you don't want it so tight that you can't move it. But you don't want it too loose either. Okay, so our tiller arm is on. Now we are going to put the carb on, and that's pretty straightforward. I remember when I was showing this last time, what I needed to check is when you put that back on, it's got a little notch there, see, and there's a hole. So that fits very precisely like that. Okay. And that is going to go onto the engine. It's got this little collar. We can put it somewhere where it's easy to get to. We wiggle this on, and our trusty screwdriver. Again, oh, that's left-handed for me, so. Okay. then to attach this, and you can pretty much see the marks on here where it was. It's got two little screws that I just put back on so we didn't lose them. So we can take those out. Let's put our little tub there again so they don't drop through the table. And that's going to go on there. I think what will be easier is I'm going to just move it closer to me. I can see it a bit better. Put it through there. Get the bracket on. No, that's not, don't fight me at every turn here. There we go. That's one side. And that looks like it's lining up quite nicely. Famous last words. Okay, finally. So we can make that a little bit tighter, but it's just when you've you want it not to pull the cable when the tiller arm is down like that. That looks good to me. Okay. Then, so if you think about this attached to the boat, and there's the propeller spinning, and this is attached to the engine and would go in like that. Okay, so 2 nuts, 2 washers. They've both got to come off. Where's our little bucket there? There's 1, 2, there's the washers, and then this comes off, and pretty much put it anywhere to fit it. Just make sure we don't tighten it before we need to move it to where it needs to go. So I can put my washer, little brass nut, and my trusty spanner. And of course I've got to do the other side as well. So there's the washer, there's the nut. Put that on. Now I could, of course, if I was being lazy, use that to just get it going. let's leave that for now. We can tighten that a bit later. There's always a question at what point is it easier to work on it when it's vertical, not horizontal. But I'm going to keep going with this. So this dome nut is the one place where our trusty spanner doesn't help us. You'd think that the Seagull tool would, and it just seems to get on there, but it doesn't give you a lot of leverage because we need to remove this dome nut to put the cover on. Now maybe yours is not on, that would be good. So I'm going to hold this and okay, so now we are going to put this cover on, and it's got a washer, and then it's got the dome nut, and that's probably a good place to use the shifting spanner, because I do get a bit tight. Okay, there we go. So what we can do now is put the fuel tank on. So hopefully you can see that. So the tank, again, the washers are on it, or the nuts. So there's two brass nuts. Sometimes a washer, sometimes not. There are two of these little pads that protect it. And it is going to go on like that. It's starting to look like a seagull, isn't it? So one on that side. And one on that side. Again, I can cheat a little bit just to speed things up. You'll be really careful with these because this thing will tighten it to 40 Newton meters, which is way too tight. So you just probably better to do the last little bit with the spanner. Okay, that's looking good. Let's do the fuel. This tap goes in here. There's a washer as well, felt washer. And just going to get that going. We get it so that it starts to bite, and then we just want to get it into a position where it's easy to access the tap. The shift is good. So I'm just going to bring it around to, let's say, there. That seems a good spot. And then the banjo bolt needs to go in here. See, it's got a little hole in it where the fuel goes through. it has a gauze washer, which I showed you in the last video, which unfortunately has dropped under the table, so I'll find that later. But that goes through there. This has got to be the right way around. See, if I had it the wrong way around, it doesn't want to go all the way. See that gap? So get it the right way around. That goes through there. The second felt washer on that side, onto the carb, and we can again just hand tighten it for a bit. Most of these threads I cleaned when I redid the engine, that's why it kind of goes together quite nicely. That's our trusty 5/16, and we just want to get that nice and firmly tight so nothing's going to leak out of there. Okay, so we're in good shape. Got the fuel on. What we can put on now is the HT cable. So it's gonna go like that onto there, and then this bracket goes on there to hold it down, and it's got a crush washer and a small nut on each side, which I'm just gonna finger tighten. But you could give them, make sure they're nice so they won't sort of vibrate loose. And you can use the shifter for these little ones too. There we go. And then on this side, I'm going to put the spark plug in there. Get that nicely in. And again, you can use the shifter. To give it a last few rotations. And again, you want it nicely tight, but not over tight. That's good. And then the HT lead goes on there and clips on. Okay, so the only real thing of substance we've got left is the propeller. So I'm going to put this over there to rest nicely, and hopefully this thing is still recording. So we've got a propeller and we've got three things: spring, a washer, and a split pin. And it's a really smart spring because it basically, if you do hit a rock or something, it allows, the propeller to give way without breaking. So we've basically got to get it on there, that little bit down, and that pushes on. Sometimes you might have to give it a little tap, percussive maintenance. Perfect. So the washer on, the split pin through there, and then often you just got to give it a little tap to get it go through. There we go. And then the screwdriver, just to open that pin up a little bit. And then your trusty pliers to bend it around. Okay. Let's put those over there. I'll just show you what it looks like. Yeah, so I've got to take it out again, but you would just bend those around and then it's going to be nice and firm in there. Obviously, if I spin the flywheel, my propeller's turning. You'll find it harder to spin now because it's got compression because the spark plug's in. Now I can put it that way, and the last thing I can do is tighten this up with my trusty spanner. And then the bracket is going to go on there. And this is the safety pin that goes through there, through there, through there, and then like that. And that, my friends, is our fully assembled Seagull engine. Ready for use. I did put some instructions in on how to start it, what kind of oil to put in, how much oil to put in, both the gearbox and the engine. There's our trusty tiller. Move it a bit out. I need to rotate it in all its beauty. The Seagull, British Seagull, 40 plus, fresh out of its suitcase, and very soon to be enjoyed on the water, wherever you are. Maybe at the Seagull Regatta in Kenton-on-Sea. Thanks for watching.